Welcome. This is our situation report brought to you by the American Security Council Foundation. I am your host, Joy Votrobek, and with me is Senior Analyst Laurence Sanford. Larry?
Good day, Joy. Nice to be with you.
Good day. Larry, I wanted to bring up a situation I saw in Bloomberg. Actually, I'm sure it's other places, but the U.S. military is getting smaller, cheaper, and smarter is the article's name. But you have talked about our big waddling ducks, you call them, carriers.
Nuclear carriers, yes.
And how they should probably be replaced and how expensive they are to build. So I thought this was a very interesting article and something good to bring up at this point because the U.S. military is now looking at drones.
Yes.
Called the Replicator.
Yes.
In order to keep up with China or counter China.
Well, it's an excellent point. And the nuclear carriers, we're looking at a $15 billion ship surrounded by another $10 billion worth of support ships, infrastructures, airplanes. So when you have a nuclear carrier task force, you're looking at $25 billion. The Chinese have developed a myriad of missiles to take out these ships. And to me, that's why I call them waddling ducks, because they don't have a chance against an oncoming barrage of missiles that will take them out. And so I'm a fan of Star Wars 30 years ago, and you remember the battle of the big battleship and the little drones floating all around? The drones won. And simulations are the drones are going to win again. And in the Ukraine, you see the drones are having a significant impact. Their price is cheap, they're easy, big battleships, big planes, they're not going to work, and they're easy to blow up. Whereas drones and missiles are cheap, relatively speaking, and can wipe out a lot of tanks, for example, airplanes. So I'm delighted to see that the military is starting to move in this direction because every year you read about more ships, we need more ships. I'm not sure we need more ships. I know we need better ships. And the Navy's had a terrible problem in designing new ships. And to me, the most obvious way to do it cheap and best is to get some old oil tankers, double-hulled, load them up with missiles with a crew of 30 or 40 people and let them go. And a lot better than a 6,000-person ship like a nuclear aircraft carrier. If the little tanker gets blown up, 30 or 40 people is a lot more affordable than 6,000 Americans going down the ocean. So
yes,
and the other big thing I recommend is, of course, submarines. They're very hard to detect. They're getting easier though because with technology now, the satellites can pick up anomalies in the ocean, so that they're not so quite hidden as they used to be, but they're still a lot better than a surface ship. And of course, then you have the Chinese fishing fleet, which ranges from 2,000 to 10,000, who the heck knows. And they have equipment on them too that might detect submarines. But nuclear submarines are very expensive. 1/3 of our nuclear fleet is always in dry dock or going through training, so that our effective fleet is very small. Whereas electro diesel submarines cost 1/10 of a nuclear sub. A nuclear sub costs $3 or $4 billion. Whereas a diesel electric costs 1/10 of that. So you can have 10 diesel electric submarines for the price of one nuclear. And today's technology, the Swedes, the South Koreans, the Japanese, they build terrific diesel electric submarines. There was an exercise recently where the Swedes had a diesel electric submarine being the enemy in a U.S. training exercise. They ran circles around the nuclear carrier, shot it down, sunk it down a dozen times, and they never could catch up with the Swedish diesel electric. So to me, we ought to make a deal. We don't have the shipyards anymore. We don't have the capability. We should make a deal with the Swedes and the Germans. The Germans make ones too. Japanese, South Koreans. Hey, we'll buy you diesel electric submarines so we can beef up our forces. So to me, to go cheap, and the best example, it's just what happened with India. They get a vehicle on the moon, and their budget for space is what? $10 billion a year versus our $150 billion a year. I mean, they do it improvising and keeping it going. And one of the reasons Elon Musk has done such a great job, he came up with the concept of a reusable charger, booster rocket. Never heard that coming out of our government-run organizations. So
it's very impressive to watch.
Yeah, it was very impressive what the Indians have done with what they had to do it with. So good for them.
Yes. Well, and getting back to that article, I mean, I thought that was great, the smaller, cheaper, and smarter point, because as we know, the Chinese Navy has overtaken our Navy and as far as size and amount of ships.
Yep.
But we at the American Security Council, we talk a lot about building up our military and the need to build up our military and what's happening with China. But then there's a lot that you hear of complaints that they don't want to spend more money on the military budget. There's always complaints about the military budget. So I think keeping it with a drone perspective like this, that's smaller, cheaper, and smarter, is definitely something that could pass in Congress.
Yeah, I'm happy to see the military is starting to think that way. The Marines are downsizing as far as equipment's concerned. They're getting more mobile. I think that there's a certain segment of the military that's got their act together, and I think the drones and the missiles are the way to go.
And you mentioned the Ukraine, and I was going to say I was impressed also with that boat. It was, I think, a small little underwater, not very deep, but drone boat that made an impact. That was quite impressive.
So, thank you, Joy. The situation.
Well, thank you for that little situation update. Thank you to our listeners, and you can read all of our articles and updates on www.ascf.us. Continue to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and subscribe to our channel on YouTube and Rumble. Join us again next time for our situation report. Thank you.